Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hops Geek News. We are a podcast that discusses comic books, movies, TV shows, and we typically have a beer of the week. This week's episode is to get you ready for the illustrious, the incredible, the savior of the Infinity Saga, Ant-Man. But of course, we're not just doing Ant-Man to get you ready for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. We are going to discuss Kang as well. So we're going to dive into some history, some origins, talk about Ant-Man and Kang, and get really excited for the movie coming up. So this is our Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania pre-show. If you have never joined us before, go ahead, follow us, subscribe, like all of that good stuff on Hops Geek News. That's where you can find us on any social media platform, any sort of podcasting platform as well. Leave a 5-star review, drop a review as well, because that's how the podcast grows. And if you feel so inclined, patreon.com/hopsgeeknews and threadless.com. I'm sorry, hopsgeeknews.threadless.com. That's where you can find some merch. We're maybe going to be looking into doing some fresh stuff here in the near future. But also, if you want to get this nice Kang Train shirt that I'm wearing, go check out Sean from Metalcore Nerds, metalcorenerds.com. That's where I got this going. Roosevelt's, of course, with the Marvel shirt. And now that I'm done pimping everybody and their mother out, let's talk about what we're drinking first. Lauren, what are you drinking? Because I'm going to save my beer for the main segment.
Well, I have another beer for the main segment. So I'm drinking a beer from Invasive Species Brewing. I got to hit up Fort Lauderdale this weekend just for one night. This is where I grew up. So I just swung by just to grab a couple cans and get out of there. And I wish I had grabbed more because one of the things this brewery does, I got a 4-pack of hazies and then I grabbed one West Coast. I got the West Coast for this episode because, Ant-Man lives on the West Coast.
He does.
Um, so their beers are just phenomenal, and this is only 5.2%, and the
That's it?
Hasties I got were only 5.8, and they tasted fantastic. I love this brewery. It's a tiny little spot right in downtown Fort Lauderdale. We were leaving the beach and heading to Sunrise, so I was like, "Oh, real quick, let me just jump out of the car and leave you kids here while I go buy some beer." My oldest is 19. I did nothing illegal, but I did run in and get some beer, and the place was slammed, and
Look,
it's
we've all done
amazing.
it.
And the whole place is decorated really cool too, because there's like an alligator on the wall and there's like stuff to like all these different kinds of invasive species. So you could argue that Kang is an invasive species,
I mean, he
but
is in a way.
it's got a weird little monkey mermaid little
Oh,
thing
that's
on
like
here.
a Gumby looking Sasquatch monkey,
Yeah.
basically.
So it is a mash hopped West Coast style pale ale fermented with thiolized yeast from Omega Yeast Labs and dry hopped with Citra. I like that they're starting to put what yeast they're using on these beer cans. They're giving
Yeah.
more recognition to yeast. So you can see it's very clear, very pretty. It's delicious. It smells great, tastes great, and it's low ABV. So I can have a few beers tonight and be fine tomorrow.
Yeah. Famous last words. Well, before you mess up and do that, what did we mess up last week on our episode?
So actually, I don't think we messed up on anything. But I did want to point out, I noticed on Disney Plus because I've been rewatching Loki, and also I like to watch the assembly things before the new ones come out, or the assembly things are the making of, and then they have the legends before the things come out, which I'll talk more
Mm.
about that later. So I noticed the chronological order of phase 4 because you can go to chronological order and it'll tell you to start with Captain America and then you go to Peggy Carter and then you go to Captain Marvel. So phase 4's chronological order is Moon Knight, Wakanda Forever, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, then Thor Love and Thunder, and then the Werewolf by Night and Guardians of the Galaxy
Huh.
specials, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, of course, we know that there's a timeline book coming out in like
Mm.
September. So maybe that'll shed some light because Doctor Strange, I didn't think took place before Hawkeye, but maybe it takes place. Well, no, I guess it kind of would. Maybe I don't know. No,
Oh yeah. Yeah,
it
Doctor
wouldn't.
Strange was listed before Hawkeye, which I was confused at because Hawkeye takes place at Christmas and
I,
Spider-Man ends at Christmas.
that's what I was gonna say. And the Doctor
Yeah.
Strange film picks up after they talk about after the events of Spider-Man. I thought so. That's weird that they would place Doctor Strange before
Hmm.
Spider. I don't know.
Maybe
Weird.
Doctor Strange is just in between because the tree was still up at the end of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So maybe it's
It's
because Hawkeye occurs before and after. Like maybe it's like Spider-Man and then Hawkeye starts
I
and
don't
then
know.
Spider-Man ends and then Hawkeye ends.
I don't know. We'll have to we'll have to look, I guess, more into that because I always thought, yeah, weird. Okay. Well, interesting. what have we been reading or watching lately? So both of us will watch The Last of Us. We'll get to that in just a second. We'd like to talk about The Last of Us, and episode 4 is pretty interesting, so I'll go over that in a minute. But I have been playing briefly I downloaded it, but Hogwarts Legacy is out. If you know anything about that, we kind of briefly talked about it a couple weeks ago. It is the open world game taking place 100 years before the events of Harry Potter, and a lot of, you know, controversy, of course, because the creator of Harry Potter is just a piece of trash human being. But I kind of live in a realm of I can acknowledge that that person's a really terrible person, but also like she's made her money. So it doesn't matter what I'm doing with this video game, and I'm supporting some creators of the video game who put time and effort into this, and I really like the story so far. So I've been playing that and watching Supernatural, of course, here and there when I can.
Woohoo.
I tried to watch Skinamarink, and it's a very divisive horror film that's takes place in the 90s. People either
Skinamarink?
yeah, so people either like it or hate it. I personally got very bored of it. Like I gave it 15 minutes. It was just shots of like VHS grainy tape shots of just various things happening and voices, and it wasn't my cup of tea. Like I really tried to get into it, and maybe it pays off. Maybe I'll go back to it and try to watch it again. But it wasn't very good. It's on Shutter. If you do want to watch it, it's about 90 minutes or so, and it's supposed to be about just demons, I guess. But yeah, I
Is it controversial because it's shitty, or is it controversial because of the topic?
because it's shitty. It's either one
Oh,
of those
okay.
like you're into this type of film that they produced, or you're just not, and maybe it just wasn't
Right.
for me, which is okay because not every piece of media out there is for me. So I highly encourage people to give it a shot to watch to make your own opinion. Essentially, just because it wasn't for me doesn't mean it's not for you. So
Right.
that's other than The
Maybe
Last
some
of
people
Us.
just can't appreciate fine art.
That's true. Maybe I just don't appreciate art. You're right.
That's got to be what it
Have
is.
you watched other than Last of Us, which we'll get to in a second?
Other than Last of Us and the couple episodes of Supernatural I watched with my husband, I rewatched Loki this week. And it's amazing, when I think about all these new phase ones, because the older ones I feel like I watched so much, like they were like on repeat, and Josh would randomly put Black Panthers like one of his favorites would always be on. So we've always had those movies kind of on repeat on our house. But the new phase four, I haven't really seen anything more than once except Spider-Man. So I put on Loki and I was surprised how much I had completely forgotten. And there's a couple things I picked up and watching it after doing research for Kang and pulling out some of the very old Avengers comics that have Kang in them that I'll talk about when we get to our main topic. But yeah, there were things I was like, oh, hey, I forgot about that, or oh, hey, I didn't realize that, or oh, hey, oh shit, that person's that, and I didn't realize that.
There's always, yeah, it's fun to look
So,
back because I'm with you. I've only watched everything once with the exception of Spider-Man, and it's fun to look back and be like, oh wow, now that we know what we know, to
mm-hmm.
pick up little hints, especially Loki, because Loki's gonna, from what I've heard, Ant-Man and the Wasp kind of ties into Loki season 2, kind of leads into that. And then of course, He Who Remains is a variant of Kang.
Right.
So they all kind of lead in. So seeing those bits and pieces there to where we're about to be headed in this phase, I should probably give it another watch. I think maybe I will after I watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, which comes out this week. Of course, I'm there Friday
Yes.
night, so I'm wicked excited.
Yeah, I gotta buy my tickets
Yeah. So let's spoiler alert. Three,
for Last of
two,
Us.
one. Let's go into The Last of Us. Episode 4 just came out. And where we left off, Bill and Frank's story, we now pick back up with Joel and Ellie, who are on their way west. And so in the game, this storyline that we see in this episode, in the game, it's Pittsburgh that they kind of stroll through. And so it's very interesting. There's a shot of a bridge that they're crossing or going to cross. It it looks like that's Wheeling, West Virginia, where they cross that bridge because I've driven over that bridge and I've gone there and I've got family in that area. So I recognize it right away. However, in the show, they end up in Kansas City, which is not Pittsburgh, believe it or not. And they pull
What?
up to essentially a roadblock. They decide they're going to cut through the city and get back on the highway. And that's where they kind of come into a trap. So this happens in the game as well. Pretty not like a little
It's
bit
a
different,
trap.
but these hunters set basically a trap. Hey, I'm hurt. Help me. And Joel is like, get your seatbelt on. He knows right away. However, let me back something up
because
real
he
quick.
used to do it.
Yes. Well, let me back something up real quick. They did a shot for shot make of the scene with the magazine. So last episode, I was like, oh, we didn't get the the men's magazine that Ellie finds in the back. It's a shame we didn't get that. But they did it. They opened up this episode with it. And she's like, why are the pages sticky? How does he walk around with that thing? They actually did it, which is hilarious.
I think all girls wonder how you guys walk around with those things. Um, is Bill still alive in the game? Because he
Yeah.
didn't. Oh, okay. So they just killed him in the show. That was a difference.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That was a difference. Well, yeah. Yeah. I can't remember. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he ultimately does die in the I think he does die at some point in the game, but they do a little bit of
But at
side
this
mission
point, he was
stuff with
still
Bill.
alive.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So and but yeah, Joel used to do what the hunters did, which is entrap people. They get into a firefight and Ellie has that gun on her and shoots the hunter, which kind of happens in the game too. She picks up the gun and shoots him. That's the first time she's killed anybody. And they did
It's
that
not the
really well.
first time in the show though, because he's like, "I'm sorry you had to experience that at your age," and she's like, "It wasn't my first time."
Yeah,
So a
right.
kudos though to The Last of Us. I thought it was funny when he's like gas breaks down over years. It's like, oh, in The Walking Dead it
Yes.
doesn't. But at the same
Yes.
time, he still had ample gas. So it was like, okay, they're
Yes.
gonna acknowledge it, but they're still gonna pretend like all of this gas wouldn't have already been siphoned at the same time.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because my first thought. So in my day-to-day job, I deal with jet fuel and stuff like that. And so my first thought in these things is like gas breaks down over time. Like this isn't accurate. And so one of the first things they did was siphoning gas and she's like, "Why do we have to do this every hour?" He's like, "Gas breaks down, it's basically water, blah blah blah." And granted, gas is probably you're not driving at this point, 20 years on. But I was so stoked that they gave an explanation. I was like, nobody
Mm-hmm.
does that. They're getting the fine details of this show really, really well done. And
Well,
I'm
and
just impressed.
they also explained how this could actually happen in the most
Yeah.
logical way that's ever been. I mean, they still haven't explained it in The Walking Dead. They go to the CDC and talk to the guy and watch
Everybody's
the
born
whole
with
like
it.
MRI thing, and yeah, we all have it, but they didn't really say how you don't just like how your body is still moving even if you've been shot to pieces. And in
Yeah.
this, it seems like when you're shot to pieces, do you have to have a headshot to die in this?
Yes.
Okay, so it is still a headshot, so they
Yep.
can still control you without a heartbeat.
Yeah, it's like latched onto their brain essentially.
Okay.
So, which is really cool. And next episode, we're going to get the mother of all fungus zombies. So you just wait.
All right, leave it
Which,
there. No spoiler. I don't want any
oh, I'm
game
not spoiling.
spoilers.
I'm not going to spoil at all.
All
Trust
right.
me. Just episode 5 has already come out at this point because of the Super Bowl, which by this time, we know who won the Super Bowls as well. But yeah, they do some really
My
cool
money's on
things.
Kansas City. I have no
I,
idea. I don't
I,
care.
so Kathleen, you might have recognized her. She was in Two and a Half Men and also Yellow Jackets.
Yes, yeah, I love her in Yellow
And
Jackets.
she's an addition. She's not in the game at all. So she's an added in to kind of give you a villain, I
So
guess.
she's Daryl. Well, Daryl's not a
Yes.
villain, but he's not a comic book character.
And you know the bearded guy who's kind of her right hand man in the show that we kind of see?
Yeah.
That's the voice of Tommy in the game.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So I like how they incorporate the voice actors as well. And
I wonder if they would have had Annie play Tess if she hadn't been sick, because she's a great
mm,
actress
yeah,
and she's
that's
attractive.
true.
And the age, I mean, she was 45. He said he's 57. I mean, that's a far age difference, but in the apocalypse, who cares?
I believe she plays a different character. We just
Oh, I
haven't
thought you
seen
said she was
yet.
Tess.
No, I'm saying she plays a different character in the show coming up, I
Oh,
think.
the woman who just passed?
Yes, I think she's going to be in the
Oh.
show at some point as a different character. Yes.
Oh, that'd be cool to get to see her in the
Because
show.
all the voice actors do make an appearance in the show at some point.
That's fun.
So be looking out for that. But we're going to be meeting there. Kathleen's looking for Henry, somebody named Henry, and Sam, who we meet at the very end of this episode. And I'm going to leave that there without any
I
game
appreciate that.
spoilers because it's very hard to talk about Henry and Sam without spoiling something in the game. And now they're going to be escaping the city, hopefully. Who knows? That's kind of where we leave them. Some
I
people
mean, they
found this
each have a
episode
kid.
boring.
I hope they team up. I didn't think this episode was boring at all. I don't think it was
It went by
as
fast.
impactful. It did. It went by really fast. And I think last week it was more like emotion. This was more like the mission. We got
Move the
to move
story
on.
along. Yeah.
Yeah. Last week we got to really dive deep into the story and the world. And this week we're this week. It's part of the journey too, guys. It's
Yeah,
not
you have to
just
advance the story at some point. Not everything is going to be like this heavy hitting emotional, because then you're just
well,
exhausted.
and then if it doesn't move the story along, people are like, this episode didn't even move the story along.
It's
So
just a
it's
filler. Bill and
literally
Frank.
all these episodes are filler. We're not learning things. We're not taking this information. I mean, some people are making money off of this, but like this is for entertainment. So no matter what it is, as long as you're enjoying it, it's doing its job.
Yeah, it's people aren't ever going to be happy, right? And that's just the way it goes. I really enjoyed this episode. I'm really enjoying, and the ratings and the viewings, they continue to rise. So I think viewership went up by
Rightfully so.
17% after this episode, for this episode
Wow.
again. So
Even with
it's
all the homophobia, that's awesome.
yeah, everybody, yeah, it's continuing to go up. And if you're not watching this show, why are you at this point still listening? I hope you're coming back and maybe you're just skipping along. But yeah, so we won't go too much more into detail because again, we want you to watch this and also listen to the rest of our episode, right? And episode 5 is out now. We'll talk about it next week. Let's roll into some news. Last week we talked about the new DC slate. So James Gunn has come out with some comic recommendations for the upcoming DC films. So if you want to check out Swamp Thing, check out Absolute Swamp Thing by Alan Moore and Stephen Bissett. Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow by Tom King and Bleaks Evely. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I'm apologize in advance. Terrible names. The Authority by Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch. Baton by Grant Morrison, Andy Kubert, and Tony Daniel. So those are some things to check out if you want to look into what they're going after in these upcoming
I'm sure
storylines.
all the comic book shops are racing to go order more.
Well, I was just about to say, so they're pretty much sold out like everywhere of these stories, and they've already talked about they're going to be coming back into print. So if you missed out, can't find them right now, you're able to still get them. They're going to be coming back into print, and it's going to be a lot of good reading to do because if you've heard these names, Alan Moore, Tom King, Warren
This
Ellis,
Tony
Brian Hitch,
Daniels writes something I read, but I can't think of what it
mhm,
is. Does
it's
he do Noctera? I don't know.
I don't remember, but yeah, absolutely heavy hitters in the comic book game. Get your hands on them if you can. If your comic book store has them. Also, don't forget All Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly. So get your hands on those. Those are some heavy hitting storylines. And we also are getting a Toy Story 5, a Frozen 3, and an Inside Out 2. I personally don't know why we're getting another Toy Story. I know it's a very popular franchise. We're all going to be there. But do we really need it? I don't think we do. What I wouldn't mind seeing, since we got a Buzz Lightyear film, I wouldn't be opposed to getting a Woody film where it's like a Western style animated Woody film based off of, the toys based off of. If that's what we did for Buzz, why not do it for Woody? Maybe he falls in love with Bo Peep in the Western movie. Why not? Why else would Andy have Bo Peep as well? Maybe it's just toys from that movie.
I enjoyed 4, but honestly, for 3 was like closure for me, and it was very emotional and
Agreed.
everything. I did just look it up. Tony Daniel does do some of the art for Noctera,
Oh, right
which
on.
is a fun apocalyptical comic book. I highly
Yeah.
recommend. It's still ongoing.
Well, I don't know why we're getting Frozen 3 either, except for the fact that I haven't been tortured enough by watching the first two Frozens enough.
Uh,
So I don't know where else we can go with this story. We kind of, I thought, closed the book again into the perfect closure. Inside Out 2, we already kind of knew Inside Out 2 was coming, I thought. And I'll just leave those there.
yeah,
We
I
are,
think we did. I
yeah.
want Bing Bong's origin story. Poor Bing Bong.
Well, I just hope this poor girl doesn't go through more trauma. My God.
She doesn't even remember Bing Bong. I guess there
I
is no
know.
origin story. I guess that's it, but it's
Not
still
at
sad.
all. We
It's like when an
to
imaginary character just vanishes and it makes you cry. It's like, what am I doing with my life?
Goodbye, imaginary friend. So long.
Oy.
Well, we are getting a Spider-Man Noir live action series, which is coming to Amazon Prime. I sincerely hope Nicolas Cage plays this character. Why? What
Plays
are we?
Spider-Man?
He
Oh,
plays him
Nicolas
in
Cage.
Nick
For some
Cage.
reason, I was thinking Jack Nicholas. I have no idea
Oh,
why.
Jack
I'm like,
Nicholas
that
is
would be
about no,
terrible. I
no,
don't
no.
want Nicolas Cage either.
What? Nicolas Cage plays him in the movie.
Nicolas Cage plays Spider-Man in the
Nick Cage
movie?
plays Spider-Man Noir in Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh,
He's
he
the
voices
voice.
him. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah,
he's the
but still,
voice.
I don't know. He's
What?
intense.
Yeah. You need that. He's mad. You know
Uh,
what? Give me Nick Cage or give me death, people.
all right, Patrick Henry,
How
move it
about
along.
this? Will get you excited. Patrick Stewart, Sir Patrick Stewart, has been told to be ready to make a return as Professor Xavier in Deadpool 3. That's exciting. This
Hope
is
he tells Logan to
I
fuck
hope he
off
doesn't
again.
get his neck broken or die in this one too, because my God, how many times are we gonna kill poor Patrick Stewart?
Oh my God, they killed Xavier.
It's like we're bringing him back and he's dead. X3 dead.
X2, he died.
X2 dead. Multiverse of Madness dead.
Dead. Logan,
Logan
dead.
dead. Poor guy. Like, can we just spare his life for a change? Maybe pop in on him. He's running Professor X's School of the Gifted. Maybe just let the man live. That's all I'm saying. What news do you got?
So Roku and Tubi are going to be giving a new home to the removed HBO Max content. So if there was anything on HBO Max that you were upset was leaving, like Westworld, that's where it's going. Percy Jackson season 1 has wrapped. There is a Dexter spinoff series apparently in the works. It's going to involve the Trinity Killer. I also saw there's also rumors going around they might be doing something with Harrison, and there might be an origin story for Dexter. I don't know how much
How much
of
are we going
any
to
of
get out
this
of
we
this?
need. I mean, I love Dexter, but I feel like they went into a lot of origin story. There was a lot of flashbacks.
We got his flashbacks, his dad, his
Yeah.
family, his son.
I mean, don't
we got it all.
get me wrong. I'm going to watch anything Dexter related. And I hope if they do something that, what's his Michael is still involved.
Yep.
Because I love him. Michael C. Hall. I forgot his name for a minute. But I don't know how much. I mean, I guess Showtime's just clinging to, hang on to Yellow Jackets, guys. That's really good. It just needs to get some momentum and more people need to know about it.
Yeah, we don't really have a lot of original properties happening anymore. Everything's a prequel, a sequel, a spinoff of X, Y, and Z. It's there's no originality.
That's our fault though, because we clean, like I just said, whatever it is, I'll watch
Damn
it.
it, Lauren, this is your fault and your fault alone. Never mind the fact that I am the reason why movies like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, Mean One, and the soon to be Bambi and Peter Pan horror movies are the reason why they're getting made.
So speaking of Blood and Honey, I'll jump to that real quick. So the guy who's created Blood and Honey has said he wants to make this
with Bambi and Peter Pan.
A universe. Oh, that's what he's doing? I thought you were just saying those were going to be different ones.
No, it's Bambi and Peter
Pan.
And guess who's the reason? Me, because I am the one who watches content like this. So we all have our faults. Jesus even made mistakes, okay, people?
I am not okay with Winnie the Pooh. You know what? A horror Bambi movie that's the hunter. Sure. Let's villainize hunting.
No,
don't
it's
villainize
Bambi. A vicious
Pooh
deer.
Bear. Pooh Bear is so innocently intelligent.
Sir
so
Christopher
sweet.
Robin left him.
Okay.
Bambi's
that 90s show is
killed.
getting a season 2 on Netflix.
No surprise.
Everyone knows Bambi's mom was killed. That was in the Disney version.
Well, now Bambi's out for blood.
Gladiator sequel will be out November 22nd, 2024. I really hope The Rock plays Bambi. Have you seen that on SNL? The skit where he's dressed as Bambi. It's amazing. Go
God.
YouTube that right now. The Rock,
my God.
Bambi SNL.
Oh man.
Amazon is doing a series based on the Snyder Jock Image comic called Witches, but it's with a Y.
Yes, it looks so good. Or it doesn't look good. The comic is dope.
So Constantine 2 is reportedly still in development with Keanu Reeves, despite all the DC nonsense. If you're a Chippendale Rescue Rangers fan, there are meet and greets now at Hollywood Studios by Indiana Jones. HBO Max and Discovery are apparently now not merging. They need to stop telling shit before it's final. Like, just keep that shit in the boardroom.
I'm so tired of everything HBO and Discovery.
And my last piece of news isn't really news. It's just something that came up that I thought was worth sharing. So Dominique Throne, who is Riri Ironheart in Wakanda Forever,
Thorn.
Thorn, she actually auditioned for Shuri. And because of that audition, they said when they were looking for people to play Riri, they didn't even need to look any further. They went with her. And the video of her with Chadwick when she's auditioning has been circulating lately.
Oh
Such a
man,
sweet
it's
video.
sad.
And you see Chadwick wearing a shirt that says "Stand Up to Cancer."
You
So, and
do.
of course, no one knew then.
You do, which is crazy. It's still crazy to me. Oh
Mm.
my god, it's still so crazy. That audition tape is really cool. I
Yeah.
I like her obviously better as Riri, and I like the I
Oh,
guess a lot.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
And she also looks, I mean, Shuri looks young too. But I mean, Riri, she's now playing like a 19-year-old.
right.
So I feel like she looks younger and portrayed some of a younger feel, which Shuri did in Black Panther, but she had
Yeah,
to grow up
no, she
quick.
did, and then yeah, she grew up quick, but I'm with it, and it's really cool. So go check that out. We are gonna roll into our main topic now. So we're gonna talk about Ant-Man and Kang, all the good stuff. We're gonna give you the background. We got some polls. We got some good things to get you ready for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania in theaters everywhere this week. So before we do so, quick message from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Like I said, we're talking Ant-Man and the Kang Train has left the station. We're gonna dive into some history, some notable comics you should check out, and but we couldn't do that just the two of us. This is a story that needs something bigger, and so we brought Jamal back to join us. And Jamal's been on an episode before, but hey, Jamal, welcome back to the show. Remind everybody who you are and where they can find you.
All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me again. I'm a quote unquote craft beer influencer. So if you like craft beer and you want to see what's going on in my life and places I go to, you can check me out at the Hop Circles, only on Instagram.
Yeah. It's you get to brew all sorts of really, really cool beers with a lot of really great breweries down there. And I know that Lauren has mentioned she's gotten to try some of those beers. I'm doing it one day. I know that because you're doing a lot of really cool things. And it's a pleasure to have you again, man. It was really great getting to chat last time. Did you got a
Yeah.
drink here tonight? What are you drinking tonight?
Uh, this is a old favorite, Purple Haze.
Ooh,
Oh.
yeah, that is
got
a good one.
It just makes me think of alligators, which makes me think of Loki alligator.
It's all connected.
So there you
man.
go. See, yeah, it's connected. I can
It's all
connect any beer to anything if I try my hardest.
It's all connected.
No.
Lauren, what's your beer for this segment of the show?
So for this segment, I'm drinking a Pompeii IPA from Toppling Goliath. You can't go wrong with Toppling Goliath IPAs. But the reason for that is in Loki, where we first were introduced to Kang, Loki actually goes to Pompeii when it explodes or erupts. And that's when he realizes you can hide in the Nexus events. And I'm drinking it out of my super sweet Pim glass that Matt sent me after his Disneyland trip. So this is the first time I've used it.
Really?
So yeah, I'm drinking out of a plastic beaker. It's so funny.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
I like that.
I too
Oh,
have a nice Pim glass that I got from Avengers Campus in Disneyland in August when I went. And let me tell you, it's awesome. It's so cool. Pim's Kitchen, phenomenal. If you get a chance to go, Pim's Kitchen is where it's at. They have like giant sized pretzels, but then
nice.
they have like little mini eggs on these burgers and these giant chicken sandwiches. Their food is either really big, really small. It's so rad. They have really, really great drinks. They'll have
They have
beer.
Carl Strauss there, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And you can do like different beer concoctions. So like beer
Ooh.
with liquor or ice cream. And man, they have really good drinks there. And that's where I got these Pim glasses. And I had to get two of them because I didn't, couldn't do it alone. And as you know, Ant-Man is my favorite MCU character. I love Ant-Man. He's my favorite MCU character. But my beer today is from the nectar of the hop gods. It is called Pulp Daddy, a
Ooh.
juicy, hazy New England IPA from Greater Good Brewing Company out of Massachusetts, USA, aka Massachusetts.
I've had that before.
Yeah, it's good.
I
So
haven't even heard of it.
it's from Worcester, Mass, which is about 40 minutes from my parents' house. I'm actually going to be going there when I go home next month. We have a day planned to go to Worcester and the actual treehouse Brewing Company. So
Nice.
Treehouse is the new one in Tewksbury is 5 miles from my dad and mom's house. However, we're also going to go down to Worcester, check out the breweries there, and probably go to Charlton to the actual one. But I chose Pulp Daddy because if you watched any of the Ant-Man and trailers for the upcoming movie, it looks like Kang's about to lay the pain. And so he's gonna beat him to a pulp. And I might be calling him Daddy after this because Jonathan
See, I hear-
Majors. I'm
I
here
hear
for
Daddy
him.
now, and I think of Pedro Pascal.
Well, how could you not? But I got a feeling that Jonathan Majors is going to have us all calling him Daddy because the year of Jonathan Majors is now. Creed 3, Devotion, and Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania. Dude's just going to totally own cinema. And I'm here for it.
Yeah, he's
He's the man.
some stuff that I heard, if it potentially happens, he's gonna be in the MCU for a very long time.
Yeah,
As he should be.
Yeah, the Kang
This
Dynasty.
is not don't do to him what they did to Gore the God Butcher.
No. This is the Kang Dynasty we're entering. And if you know anything about Kang in the comic books, he's a force.
Yeah.
He's a force. And
he's been around for so long too.
Yeah.
And he's smart. He's very intelligent.
Oh, absolutely. Oh man, I can't wait. So we're gonna talk predictions here in a minute. Lauren, why don't you kick us off? We'll talk about Ant-Man first because we're already familiar with Ant-Man and Scott Lang. So dive into Ant-Man and we'll get started.
So before I say this, every time before a new MCU project comes out, check Disney Plus, go to Legends under Marvel, and they will catch you up on anything you do not remember. Even if you think you've remembered everything, you have not. You need to get your recollection refreshed. They even did one for the Guardians of the Galaxy. They literally just show you clips from old movies of characters that are going to be in the upcoming one. As of today, Thursday, when we're recording, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure it will be out next week. I'm sure they'll have Kang. I'm sure they'll have Ant-Man. I'm sure they'll have Wasp. So definitely watch those. They are amazing. So Ant-Man, we're just going to do a little bit on Ant-Man before we dive into the Kang Train, which sounds a little dirty. Okay. So while Hank Pym is the original Ant-Man and an original Avenger, here is some quick comic history on Scott Lang, who first appeared in 1978 in Avengers 181. He was born in Coral Gables, Florida, which means he's probably a Miami Hurricane fan because I was born in Miami and lived in Coral Gables when I was born, and I am a Miami Hurricane fan. So much like the movie, he was married and he had a daughter named Cassie, and he broke the law, then got arrested and divorced. And once out of jail, he actually got a job with Stark International. Sadly, in the comics, though, Cassie had a heart issue, which is what prompted him to break into Hank Pym's home. Hank saw this and followed him dressed as Yellow Jacket. So while he was dressed as Ant-Man, Lang broke into Darren Cross's place, which is the Yellow Jacket we know from the movie, and discovered Dr. Sondheim, who could have saved Cassie. So the doctor was being held prisoner by Darren Cross, who needed the doctor to correct his own heart condition. Scott rescued the doctor, defeated Cross, and then the doctor was able to save Cassie. Lang intended to return the Ant-Man costume to its owner, but Hank Pym saw this and was like, hey, keep it, but just, do good stuff with it. There's so much more that we could do a whole episode on Hank and Scott together, and we should do that one day. But today we are focusing on He Who Remains. However, a couple quick more fun facts. Scott dated Jessica Jones. How fun would that be to see on screen?
Everyone dated Jessica Jones.
That's like Wolverine. Everybody dated or slept with Wolverine.
The fact that Peter Parker dated Jessica Jones is kind of...
What? That I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what would be funnier, Paul Rudd and Kristen Ritter, or just Peter Parker in general with Jessica Jones. Okay. Cassie at one point did actually die, and Dr. Doom resurrected her, and then she showed up on Scott's doorstep, which is, a reversal of Endgame. And at one point, Scott did join the Avengers, and he did fight Kang in the comics.
That's right. He actually also, Scott Lang premiered in, oh no, I lost my spot. I'm so sorry. This is awkward. I'll cut it out. All right.
It's okay. It happens to every guy.
Oh, no. So Scott Lang actually first appeared in the Avengers issue number 181 in March of 1979 and in Marvel's premiere number 47 in April of 1979 as the very second superhero character to use the Ant-Man name in the Marvel universe. Of course, he's a reformed thief, which I love that we get so much of that as a focus in his films. First of all, if you had gone back 10 years ago and told all of us that Ant-Man is going to get a trilogy, we would have laughed at you. Like, what are
I
you
didn't,
doing?
because I've been begging for it for years. I used to have arguments with a friend of mine, and he and I would go back and forth. He's like, they can't make an Ant-Man movie. That would be so stupid. And then I remember I always wanted Namor and Ant-Man. Haha, who's laughing now?
That's true. That
Well,
is
you know,
very true.
Ant-Man was supposed to be the original starter of the MCU, right?
Oh, that's
Like
right.
he was supposed to be the Iron Man?
Well, yeah, he was supposed to start the MCU, and I think, trying to remember, was it Josh Whedon that
It
did
was.
I know
the
he did
first
the first-
Avengers?
Yeah, it was Joss Whedon.
So yeah, I think he was supposed to direct the Ant-Man movie, if I remember correctly. But yeah, Ant-Man was supposed to kick off phase 1.
Which is wild. Imagine Ant-Man being the Iron Man, because how attached we are to Iron Man, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it would have worked. I don't know if it would have worked.
I don't know either, because people are at least somewhat familiar with Iron Man, whereas Ant-Man is a laughing stock, right?
Right.
He's like the Aquaman of the MCU, kind of in a way.
I wouldn't go that far, but
But it
look,
works
I
because
love
they
Aquaman,
cast
all
Paul
right?
Rudd. He's not in the comics, though. In the comics, I mean, he's very serious. He's,
Well, to be
and-
fair, Hank Pym
right, is the
is
original
responsible
Ant-Man.
for
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ultron and stuff like that. So if they got the
Right.
Hank Pym version, I feel like it would have worked. But
Right.
I mean, to the fact that we just get an old man Hank Pym and we're never even going to visit that aspect is very interesting in its own right. Those choices are very interesting.
They could recast into
They
an
could.
origin story.
They
That would
could.
be
That's true.
interesting.
That's true. They could like Black Widow him almost, you know?
Yeah.
But what do you think they would use Michael Douglas?
No.
No.
I mean, they
Nope.
did make him look real good at the beginning of Ant-Man with Peggy. I love that
They
they had
did.
to make Haley Atwell look old and make him look young.
Yeah,
that
that's
was
true.
fun.
So I will say Ant-Man also appeared very prominently in the 2012's Fantastic Four series. That's by Matt Fraction and Mike Aldred. And it focused, and there's also an ongoing series focused on Scott Lang. It's simply just titled Ant-Man, and it's by Nick Spencer and drawn by Ramon Rosanas. I can never pronounce names. I apologize. Which began in January of 2015. And then after the Marvel Secret Wars event, the series continued with the title Astonishing Ant-Man. So if you want to catch up on any of those are kind of what I would do. And I mean, I have those as well. I like I said, I love Ant-Man. Jamal, what are your thoughts on Ant-Man? What are some of your favorite stories? And what do you love about him in the MCU? What do you think happens with him?
I'm not a huge Ant-Man fan in the comics. And
It
it's
sounds
this
like a pun. Sorry.
No, I mean it's nothing like against the character itself. It's just I feel like there's nothing interesting, especially when you read some of the comics. Like the dialogue back then is just way out of there. It's just way out
Oh my
there.
gosh. And he's so like mean to Janet when she makes comments about Thor. Like she's obsessed with Thor being hot. And he's
Right.
like, calm yourself, Janet. Get it together, woman.
It's giving like, calm yourself, woman, get back in the
Yeah.
kitchen.
Yeah,
vibes.
it 100% is. It's so funny reading those older comics.
But like his abilities, the suit being able to shrink to molecules, being able to expand to this size, like the concept of Ant-Man is great. I think the MCU adaptation of the story of Ant-Man made Ant-Man a very lovable character. Like
True.
it wasn't just for like, people of our age and our generation. Like this is a character that's going to be known and well loved all generations, young, old, mid. Like they did perfect. And casting Paul Rudd,
Genius.
the man doesn't age.
He doesn't.
He could play the origin story for himself.
That man is in his
And
50s.
they won't even need it. Yeah.
The man is in his
insane.
50s.
And I was watching him when I was 13 and clueless.
Exactly. He's in his 50s. Somehow he's in his 50s. I don't know how, but you're right. He is, man, I can only hope to age that well.
Yeah.
Those Pym particles. Good for the good for the youth. I don't know.
And I'll say one thing though about the MCU. When it comes to casting actors to play these characters, they're 98% spot on. And
Who's
it's
2%?
hard.
Brie Larson.
No, so I understand why people aren't really fans of her in general and then her as Captain Marvel. I don't think she is bad for the role. She definitely looks the part.
Mm-hmm.
My interpretation of it though, I think because she filmed 2 movies prior to her own movie, Well, she did a
She
cameo
didn't
for
know the character.
Yeah, right.
Well, not just that, but like if you want to introduce this character who's a cosmic badass, and you tell her you are a badass, like you're probably one of the strongest comic book characters in
Ever.
Marvel.
Yeah.
You kind of set them up for that. And if you watch Endgame, you see how she was portrayed. Yeah, she was badass. Like Thanos only knocked her out because he took the Power Stone and punched her.
Yeah,
True,
I have
but-
high hopes for Marvels. I do think she's going to redeem herself because I really do think a lot of it was, she was told her whole, life when she was captured by the Kree to not show emotion. So I feel like that
Right.
lack of emotion is what made the character a little bit feel like she wasn't Captain Marvel. Whereas in the comic book, she has a lot of emotion and
Oh, she's a
not
wreck
in
in
a
the comic books.
yeah.
Drunk.
So I think that's a big part of it. Yeah, she's human in the comic books, and she was allowed to be human, but yeah, we'll do an origin episode on her before the Marvels come out for sure because we haven't done her
fact,
proper justice.
that movie was supposed to have been coming out like this week.
Oh, we can't play
originally.
those games anymore after COVID.
I
Nothing
know.
matters.
Anyway,
in
I
that
just had to
regard.
throw that out there. Yeah, no, I just had to throw that out there. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's again, in my humble opinion, Scott Lang's Ant-Man is the hero of the Infinity Saga.
That's because you love him.
Well, that and the Pym particles let them go back in time, get all the stones.
Yeah.
He kind of figured out how to travel and use that, the quantum realm, and then yeah, I mean, he's kind of the hero in my opinion.
He-
No,
he
if it
is.
weren't for him, it's true.
So imagine, because I don't think this conversation really ever comes up with anybody you talk to. Imagine if Ant-Man was never introduced and they still went the route. Thanos does the snap. They're supposed to come back because you can't kill off.
How?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, how do you do it now without
Yeah.
Ant-Man? So he
Exactly.
plays a real intricate part to the story, not just now, moving forward. And I know we're not talking predictions yet, but there's rumors that he possibly dies,
I won't be able to. I will not mentally be okay.
and I don't think he does because of how important he is to the story moving
And because
forward.
it's his
Can't wait to
Sean
get there.
from Metalcore Nerds made a good point. If he dies in this, he would be the first character that died in his own movie.
Yeah.
Really?
Because
Yeah.
think of all the Iron Man, Thor, Captain America. Like I'm not talking
Iron
about like
Man
Endgame.
died
It's
in
like,
Endgame. Who died in their solo
Right.
movie? Nobody really died in their
Right.
solo movie.
Damn.
so that would be a first.
That would ruin me. That would ruin
I mean,
me
but
emotionally.
That
then
would-
yeah. I haven't read the Infinity Saga comics in years, probably since before the movie came out, and I feel like they just got the stones back and just snapped everything back into existence. But that would be too easy. Like we saw them try to
course.
do that at the beginning.
Yeah, it was Nebula that pretty much snapped everything back to normal. Like I think Thanos was in his sleeping state, and she stole the gauntlet and reversed everything.
Yep. So
What-
it would. I'm glad they went the route they did, of course, because
Yeah.
it made it more interesting, gave people storylines, and it would have been interesting had we got Nebula to be the one to snap. But then I also feel like it wouldn't have been as impactful. Like, how do you kill Iron Man meaningfully to bring his story full circle? So it works in the context of the MCU.
When Nebula's story was still great.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
very impactful, hugely impactful, actually. But I liked how they did her and the spin on her and what we're seeing. I just want to see her take Winter Soldier's
Bucky's
arm. I
arm.
want to see how that happened.
Well,
But yeah,
let's dive into Kang the Conqueror. He
All
goes
right.
many names.
Many.
Many names. He Who Remains, Kang the Conqueror, and he also has one other really important name.
He has more than that, though.
He
which I
does.
wrote down the one name 3 times. Why did I do that?
I don't know why.
Richards,
He- I
Nathaniel
mean-
Yes.
Richards, Nathaniel
Yes.
Richards.
He
That is-
does. He goes by a lot. Oops. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I have more of his identities below. Ramatat.
Yeah,
Immortus.
Ramatat.
Yeah,
That's when
so
he
we'll
goes
get
back
into-
to ancient Egyptian time.
Yes, which I have
I'll start that over.
questions on that.
So, yeah, we have King the Conqueror, who goes by many names. He Who Remains, King the Conqueror, Ramatat, and then of course Nathaniel Richards. He is of course a descendant of Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, Although at first there's a whole storyline where he thinks or we kind of believe that he's a descendant of Doctor Doom. Come to
Different
find out,
comic books kind of lean into different things and make you think different things, but it seems pretty. He's
right.
Richard Reed's
Yeah.
descendant.
Right. And his first appearance was actually in Fantastic Four number 19 in October of 1963, which he was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And his name in that was actually Ramatut. And he then shows up in Avengers number 8 in September of 1964. And at the time travel was actually pretty important in the sci-fi genre. You got to think.
No pun intended. You didn't read no pun intended. I put that in there for a reason.
That's true. No pun intended. But you got to think in the 60s, the space race was kind of going on. So time travel was very popular in sci-fi after H.G. Wells published The Time Machine as well. So this inspired Stan Lee and Jack to kind of bring their own time traveling master character into this. And then 2 issues later, another time traveler named Immortus was actually introduced. And guess what? This too was a Kang identity.
What? Or a
The man
variant.
has so many different identities. He's had a couple other identities, and in addition to that, of course. So Ramatut, which was his first identity, he tried to use future technology to conquer ancient Egypt and tried to make Invisible Woman his life. Invisible Woman, sorry, his life.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
I had a couple of beers at this point. I don't know what's going on, but yes, he's all about Invisible Woman. And then Immortus, who was possibly a future.
Namor was in love with her too.
Yeah, I mean, especially
she's hot.
Alba. I mean, she's a babe.
But she's
Straight
a descendant of her husband.
So it's funny, because I don't think they actually ever really break down where it comes from. Like he's named after Reed's father, so that's how we know, because Reed's father teleports, time travels to other Earth. But wouldn't it be funny if the reason why Kang is a part of that bloodline is because he actually ended up I'm going.
Yeah. Like you're going like Game of Thrones with time travel here.
It's a loophole. And
that would be wild. Absolutely wild. Could you see the MCU doing something like that?
That's
I don't think
Greek
they would,
tragedy right there. That's Oedipus, extreme Oedipus.
Dude, that's just
like Oedipus Rex meets Alabama.
Yeah, I don't think that's what actually happens, but it would definitely be funny if that's how it, because we gotta remember too, the comic books were dark back then, so
that's also
shit like that is believable.
That's true.
And they experimented, I think, with a lot of things. Yeah.
Look, the 60s were a crazy time, man. All right. You had to be there. But we also have Victor Timely, who was the mayor of Timely, which was what Marvel used to be called, Timely Comics. And this was during the middle of the 20th century. He tried to destroy the Avengers and a robotic Spider-Man. And then we also have the Scarlet Centurion, who Kang tricks the Avengers into hunting superheroes and villains for Kang, actually. So, yeah, pretty interesting. Lauren, what else happens?
So Kang was born on a different Earth, like Jamal had just said, other Earth, 6311 in the year 3000. On this other Earth, the Dark Ages never actually happened, so technology took off much quicker than it did here. However, after some people moved to the moon, because apparently that's what you do if you evolve quickly, Earth people and Moon people got into a war and stuff was destroyed. This caused Earth to move back into a primitive state. Nathaniel Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic of Earth 616. Reed Richards of Earth 616, while trying to time travel, reached other Earth and settled there. Oh, no, maybe it was Nathaniel Richards, like the grandfather that you said he was named after.
Yeah.
Yes.
So while trying to time travel, reached other Earth and settled there. He helped them rebuild, and he got married to Cassandra, a daughter of the matriarch of the Irenes. Centuries later, his descendant, Nathaniel Richards, was born. When Nathaniel was bullied and had his throat slit, while recovering in the hospital, he actually was researching cross-dimensional recordings of the heroic age of Earth 616 and about Reed Richards, who was Mr. Fantastic. This led to him finding the time machine and rebuilding it, and his intention was to become the conqueror of all of space and time. So I'll go into his strengths, and then you can tell us about his trophy room. So some of Kang's strengths are futuristic battle armor. He's super smart. He's good with technology. He has amazing combat experience. Very good at political manipulation, which I feel like as a politician you have to be. Slowed aging, and you actually see this in Loki. Kang says he's older than he looks. And then he has weapons are a big tool for his. He has his battle armor fires energy blasts. His armor also gives him super strength and durability. He can summon any weapon from the time stream with a snap of his fingers. And sometimes he travels with armies from the future. So, I mean, honestly, his main advantage here is just he's from the future and he's intelligent.
Yeah.
And he has access to time travel. I mean, yeah, there you go.
And some of the items in his trophy room, we see Cap shield, Ultron, Silver Surfer's surfboard, Mjolnir, Doc Ock's tentacles, Magneto's helmet, and Wolverine's adamantium skeleton. That one's brutal.
Yeah.
That's brutal right there.
Yeah.
Kind of made me think of the Old Man Logan comics where they
Yeah.
had like Red Skull has all these mementos from destroying everyone.
Yeah. So Jamal, what can you tell us about Kang? Drop us some knowledge right now.
Ooh. Let's see. Where do I start?
In the year 3000.
Well,
We went
so
to the
Kang,
year
he's his
3000.
worst enemy. You know, like everyone else around him isn't his enemy. His enemy is himself.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah. All of his variants, you know, all of his names that he's known by, you know, forming the Council of Kang, pretty much using them to get rid of his redundant variants. Like, how crazy does that sound? Right?
You're basically killing yourself over and over.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
But he does it with other himself.
Right, which is super
Which is
weird.
even more
like,
wild. Just imagine yourself tomorrow showing up with like 7 different versions of you and like, let's go kill the other us.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And apparently they're all in. All right, let's go. Well,
all right, like sounds great.
At Loki with all the Loki variants, how they all team up and then they turn on each other.
True.
And it's like, you didn't see this coming? I mean, that's very different than Kang, because I feel like, you know, Loki is mischievous, to put it, you know, whatever. But I can go into a little bit more of the stuff, and then we can kind of break down some theory time and whatnot. So at one time, Kang changed his past so he would not be bullied as a kid. His younger self saw this and decided he didn't want his fate to be a villain, so he joined the Younger Avengers as Iron Lad. But then he saw his friend Cassie Lang, which we talked about before, actually die. And then he became Evil Kid Immortus. And this actually happened in 2005 in the run of the Young Avengers. And so we're all watching the MCU and we all feel that they're building the Young Avengers. So I do wonder if we will get a young Kang in the Young Avengers. So at times there have been too many Kangs, like we were just talking about, and they can spoil the timeline. So once he and other Kangs went to destroy Kangs. When referring to the main Kang, though, he is usually referred to as Prime Kang. Kang has been known to take on a new persona and blend in, and we saw that with the Timely guy, where he became a politician. When he arrives at a new time, he then politically or aggressively attacks in order to continue conquering all of time and space. He has traveled over 7,000 years from ancient Egypt to the year 4000. Kang's face is often seen as blue, but this is solely because of his battle armor. He is not blue. He just has normal colored skin. He is not an avatar.
Yeah, which I believe they're doing in the movie. I heard that the obviously they're doing the energy field with his helmet and stuff. So
So Kang once created time warriors known as Anochronauts. These powerful warriors were Death Hunt 9000, Apocalypse, Ray, Sir Rastin, Sith, Tyndar, and Wildrun. Were all undefeated until they encountered Kang. So he formed them together to create the Anochronauts. I want to say Octonauts, like the Nickelodeon
I was thinking
or the
that
Disney
too.
Plus card. Yeah, the Disney one. Yeah. To protect his home world of Chronopolis, which, how cute is that name, Chronopolis? Because the god Kronos time travels. Don't worry, Matt, you'll get to that supernatural episode one day. From any and all invaders or challenges to his throne. So do you want to tell us about the Uncanny Avengers?
I will. Yes. 1 second.
Arsenio Hall.
So in Uncanny Avengers that dropped in 2012, Archangel and his fellow horsemen, I cannot pronounce this, thank you Lauren, Ichisumi, had twins named Uriel and Iman.
Uriel, that's an
Uriel. Known as the Apocalypse Twins, Kang took the twins to the future and attempted to raise them under his control and attempt to use them to resurrect the 4 horsemen of death and cause the end of everything.
Dun,
Kang
dun, dun.
may want to conquer time and space, but he also just wants someone to love. Don't we all? Don't we all just want somebody to hold us at night, to kiss us, to tell us that they just love us and they're proud of us? Well, so does Kang. We're not so different after all.
Mhm.
He had actually almost conquered one world, but he had a holdout. Princess Ravana Renslayer. Curse her. He wanted to add her kingdom to his empire and marry her. She actually said no, but he wouldn't kill her. So an old henchman kidnaps her instead. And sadly, this led to her dying to save him. He then tries to find her on other timelines, and later she returns as the Terminatrix. Judge
And we
Ravana Renslayer was the
saw her.
TVA judge who portrayed Mobius.
What?
Crazy.
So I'm
Yeah.
wondering how they're gonna, if they will even connect that with Kang, if she was, because she was very adamant that she was for the TVA and everything they were doing, even when she learned that they were all variants. So is that because her and Kang have something going on? Are they going to completely ignore that comic book history and do something different and just have her be this teacher variant?
Well, which Kang are we talking about?
Exactly, that too. Yeah.
Because
Another really good point.
the one in Quantumania could be the one that she's familiar with or has the love interest with. Because you gotta remember his whole thing, he wants something from Scott.
Yes.
He wants to get out of the quantum realm, but why? Is it because he can't rule because he's in there? Is it because his love interest is out there and she obviously can't get in there? So they can go so many ways with this, and I'm all for it.
That's some real Maury Povich kind of stuff right now with Kang. Straight up. Like, oh man, that's right. That's true. That's true. Who is this version we're meeting this week?
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah. Oh man, there's so
That's the scary part, because if I recall, he's not even mentioned or named Kang the Conqueror in this one.
Oh.
So which
Yeah,
who's the Conqueror?
He kept being called He Who Remains in Loki. They never.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
He did say I have many names, but he never said
this
Kang. I don't
could
think.
be a Kang, but not the Kang.
Prime Kang.
Oh my god. And if they have this Kang looking as scary as he does in the trailers, imagine what the legit Kang the Conqueror, it's man.
It's not gonna be the sweet guy
I-
eating the apple.
I do think at the end of Loki, when he goes back, but he's in the other
Yeah.
universe, I think that is actually Kang the Conqueror's universe.
The one where
whichever-
the statue in
Yeah.
the TVA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the actual one, but I mean, we could be wrong.
That's the beauty of these things, right? That's the beauty. There's
yeah.
so much to pull from and so much that there's so many avenues they can go. And it isn't one of those like, oh, they're adapting this storyline, so this is what X, Y, and Z is. It's we don't know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We know who this character is, but there's so many branches that we don't know where it's going.
Branches.
But
Yes.
I think if I remember too, maybe they mentioned in the trailer. I tried to not watch as many trailers, but
Same.
I guess Kang, when he's talking to Scott, he's pretty much telling him like, "Oh, I've killed you. Oh, I've killed this
Thor.
person. I've killed that person."
Oh, I didn't even see
So-
that one.
So it's like, is this the original Kang? Like, it's hard to tell.
Marvel likes to
Yeah.
swerve us too in their trailers.
They do.
They do. Oh, man.
And then now you got to
I'm
explain
so
why is there
excited now?
why is there 2 Kangs in one universe?
Yeah.
Because Kangs do whatever they want. Apparently, they're like honey badgers. They don't give a fuck.
Well, he who remains is running the TVA, or was running the TVA. However, they're going to do that. But then you have this one who is trapped. So is this one who's trapped the original Kang for our universe? Well, the Marvel universe, and then he who remains, they kind of like promoted him and said, "Hey, take care of that.
Hey,
Make
you're
sure
the
he
guy
does not
now."
Get out." Like, is it one of those scenarios? Like, we don't know. And I hope he who remains is not actually dead.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, he said even if he was dead, he would be reincarnated because he's like, I'll see you soon once Sylvie
Yeah.
stabbed him.
God, we're gonna potentially see it at some point.
I don't see.
All these different Kangs on screen at once. It's like,
We
what?
need to. We need
It's
to.
gonna be like Spider-Man pointing at each other. But I don't think we're gonna get all these answers or questions answered because what Matt was saying before, I don't know if you said it off air or on air, that this is gonna feed into Loki too.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is just like the middle of this specific story.
They did say that this movie was more like their Captain America Civil War. So I feel as though it's going to
bridging and introducing
serve Ant-Man's storyline, and that it's going to progress his story with Hope, Hank, Janet, and Cassie. But at the same time, I mean, they're going to leave us on a cliffhanger, I almost feel like, because you have to. You just introduced the baddest man in the planet, or the universe.
I was going to say the planet.
There's so many stories where he even, he makes a fool of like Thanos, and we thought Thanos was the like apex predator, but what Kang can do is going to make that look like child's play. And so you got to make everybody come out looking strong on this. And it's so good.
So now Lauren, you go.
No, you go finish what you're going to say, and then I'm going to dive into more origin.
I was going to say, do we think the end goal because I saw that Galactus is the end goal for this version of the MCU, and then they're going to reboot it and introduce new characters and stuff like that. Do you think we'll ever see a team up of all the bad guys? Like Thanos comes back, we got all the Kangs, you got Galactus, and you're literally, I'm not saying this is what Secret Wars is going to do, but literally something of this magnitude. I was going to say
Secret Wars, but yeah, I mean, why not? Because
I was going to say Galactus would be perfect to introduce in Secret Wars.
The
at
multiverse.
The end.
Well, I've seen rumors that they're looking at Galactus. There's like early storyboards that Galactus is the Fantastic Four villain, which I kind of hope isn't true.
I hope so too.
I that's somebody, he's of his magnitude. You have to wait until later on, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Secret Wars, it would be kind of crazy if we're talking about getting the whole gang back together on both sides. Just imagine the portal scene, but it's literally all the villains and all the heroes that we know in different variants, and just
I mean, they got to go bigger than Endgame. See, I haven't read Secret Wars, but the comics I've read that have had Galactus in them, he's not always definitively bad.
No, he's not.
He's
him and Reed has a good relationship too.
Yeah,
like Reed could talk to him, and
I feel like he's more what serves, like Namor, like what serves what needs to be served in that moment.
Yeah, he's self-serving for sure.
But when I hear bad guys teaming up, I instantly in my head go to Old Man Logan and the Wastelands, and when bad guys team up, it is not good for the heroes. And that would be kind of cool to see, like a dark side of, let's flip the script and have this be about the villains and the villains' origin stories, and let's sympathize with the
Empire
really
Strikes
cool.
Back times like a million.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm all for it.
Oh, without a doubt.
Guy doesn't always, especially as these movies, we're seeing, like The Boys, they just said more people watched The Boys this past year than they did Marvel shows. Like they're realizing like your target market is adults. So let's cater to adults. The good guys don't always win. Let's do these
That's
dark
just life,
villain
right?
stories.
Like in life, good doesn't always prevail.
I'm reading I'm going to go buy Secret Wars this week. I'm going to buy it tonight.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
It's
been on my to-do list for years, and then they announced it, and I was like, well, shit, now it's going to be hard to get.
Better do it before it sells out.
It's probably already sold. All right, let's go into some, we got a little bit more comic book origin here. So Kang once created a robot called Growing Man, and every time Thor hit him with his Mjolnir, he would get bigger. Fortunately, Thor was able to trap him in a magical vortex. Kang, as a Mortis, actually married Scarlet and Vision, as well as Mantis and her recently brought back to life husband, Swordsman, who had been killed by Kang. Then multiple Kangs start fighting the Avengers at the same time, but separately. I have read this comic and I find it so funny. All the older comics I think I just find funny because they're all like, oh my, I am fighting Kang. No, I am fighting Kang. I have defeated Kang, but I was fighting Kang. It's funny. So Apocalypse, known to be one of the most powerful mutants ever, played by Oscar Isaac, was one of Kang's slaves back when he was called Rama-Tut. So this was my side note that I wanted to mention earlier. So with a Kang variant being a previous Egyptian pharaoh, could this be how Moon Knight gets tied in the future? And how funny would it be if you have Oscar Isaac, who was Apocalypse, and Moon Knight play both of these characters?
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Because I mean, Rama-Tut was a pharaoh. Yeah. So that would be a lot of fun.
You're spitting right now.
Let her cook.
So a basement door in the Avengers Tower once turned out to be a secret door for King to come through and conquer the world. So the Timekeepers. We
Haven't
did
you
meet the
ever heard of
Timekeepers.
closing the goddamn door?
We don't know what basements are down here. Now I just want to sing. So Timekeepers and Loki, the Timekeepers turn out to be 3 giant androids. In the future, as King's power continues to grow and he becomes immortus, he also tires of constantly losing loved ones in different timelines. So he decides to serve the Timekeepers from the temporal limbo dimension. The Timekeepers were aliens in the comics from the end of the universe who chose Immortus as their avatar to defend timelines. Notice the term avatar, which you hear in Moon Knight.
Mhm.
To defend timelines from those who would upset them, including his younger self. Immortus often found himself on the side of the Avengers and other heroes while he battled his former self in defense of the timeline. Matt, you want to tell us about Black Bolt and the Inhumans and wrap this up?
We don't talk about Inhumans, but if we did, Black
After
Bolt,
Doctor Strange, we do.
A man without a mouth. He sent his son Ahura to the past with Kang in order to save him from the incursions that led to the modern Secret Wars event. Kang agreed so long as he could keep him. However, Kang manipulated Ahura, I can never pronounce things correctly, and tricked him into wiping out the Inhumans in the past, leading him to eventually taking over the role of Kang as an adult. The Inhumans killed adult Aurora, but were able to save the young one from the past. In the Kang Dynasty run, Kang once destroyed DC and everyone there to prove his strength. Now, you wrote it.
I know. I don't know what I wrote DC as an acronym for.
I don't know. I'll cut it out. It's fine.
My bad.
Before we give predictions, I just want to go over 10 comic books that involve Kang that would be worth reading before Kang, we meet him on the big screen. So we have Game of the Galaxies, which is Avengers issues number 69 to 71 by Roy Thomas. It pits Kang against an Elder of the Universe. We then have Avengers issues number 142 to 143 by Steve Englehart, which has Kang try to conquer the Old West. It's kind of funny because Hawkeye becomes lost in time, finds himself in the Old West, and unfortunately for him, Kang was there. So
that's hilarious.
This is before a century before the Avengers have actually been founded. Hawkeye and the West gunslingers have interfered long enough for Thor, Moondragon, and Immortus to arrive hunting for Kang. So they basically just speed bump, give time for Thor and crew to show up, and they're hunting for Kang at that point. We have the Kang Dynasty, Avengers issues number 267 to 269 by Roger Stern, which has Kang taking over Limbo. A council of Kang variants was revealed, purging various timelines of ineffectual versions of themselves. One turns on the others, determined to become the sole surviving Kang, and destroying the Avengers before moving on, conquering all of the time stream from his base in Limbo. He failed to see the betrayal in his true love, Ravonna, who had allied herself with Immortus. Immortus had led Kang to believe the ruler of Limbo had died.
Renslayer.
Yes. So Kang would eliminate his divergent copies. Kang fell to defeat when he grabbed a globe that contained the collected memories of versions of Kang that had been killed. Number 7, we have Kangaroo the Conqueror helped save his reality. So this is actually a Spider-Ham kind of thing. It's kind of fun. So this is from comicbookcbr.com. And this one is basically the Council of Cross-Time Kangs evolves to include versions of Kang from alternate realities. We have Kang actually conquered the world in Avengers issues number 51 to 54. In this one, Kurt Busiek spent an extraordinary amount of time building up the threat that Kang and his son Marcus posed to the Earth and the Avengers, employing more Avengers than almost ever before. They were overwhelmed by multiple threats. Kang strikes, and he kills the entire population of Washington, D.C.
DC, that was it. Yeah.
Where your thing comes from. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just wrote it in the doc.
That's how that goes. We have Kang sought out the celestial Madonna. Kang went to retrieve Iron Lad in Young Avengers number 4 to 6.
Which is his younger self.
Yes. The first appearance of Kang debuted a new type of Avengers villain, which is, Kang just vibing, chilling in Avengers number 8 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. The Council of Cross-Time Kangs, Avengers issues number 292 to 298 by Walt Simonson. And this was actually briefly the end of the Avengers. So Kang from the Kang Dynasty story finds himself before a lot of alternate Kangs. His guide to the new organization was actually a female Kang. Ooh. Plot.
Oh.
Who reveals themselves to be Thanos' granddaughter, Nebula. She used her position in the Kang Corps to learn the location of a powerful weapon by a renegade celestial on Earth. And then Avengers Forever, which Kang intervenes when Rick Jones is attacked by Mortis. He assists a group of Avengers from throughout time. They battle Mortis, rejecting that humanity is a threat to the universe. Kang's motives were his own, revolting against Immortus and the Timekeepers. So those are some Kang stories to check out. Let us, real quick, the last time we saw these characters in the MCU, we saw Ant-Man and the Wasp. They were with Janet and Hank at Tony's funeral. Kang was dead. Well, we think so. He remains.
Said, "See you soon."
He says, "See you soon." In Loki.
And then Loki went back to the TVA, and there was a giant King statue, and Mobius didn't. Nor did I. Don't remember what the girl's name was because it was Hunter C something. She didn't have a name. So the two of them were like, "Who are you?" to Loki, because there were theories that Loki created the TVA.
Yeah, I never buyed into those ones really, to be honest with you.
So I did do a poll on Hank Pym if Hank Pym was going to survive. We got 4 votes for yes and 5 votes for no.
Ooh, well, this takes
I don't think he's going to survive.
I was going to say, so what are our predictions for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania? Speak your piece, Jamal. Hit us off.
I think Hank and Janet dies. Not just one. I think they both are gone.
Both.
I think that's good. Go out together because he spent his whole life looking for her.
Yeah. But how do they die? Is it they die because they're in battle, or is it Janet's about to die and then Hank is like, "Take me too"? Like, because you brought up a good point. He spent his whole life trying to get her back. So
I think it might be a sacrifice to save Scott for Hope.
Okay. My theory, if they die, they're gonna die getting the other 3 out of the quantum realm, sacrificing themselves to do so if they die. Now, I'm not buying that Scott makes it out of the quantum realm. My personal theory is Scott's getting stuck in the quantum realm. They're not going to kill him yet. They're going to shelve him for a bit, and he's going to be like stuck.
A Wanda. We're going to think he's dead, but we know he's not dead.
Yes, he's going to get stuck in the quantum. That's my theory. But continue.
I don't remember who was talking.
MODOK is gonna suck.
Oh man, really? You think so? All right.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not a fan.
I totally forgot that was happening.
Yeah.
I just I understand why they did that and who's playing him. I get it, but no, it already looks bad. So I have no high expectations for it. And usually when I don't have high expectations for stuff with Marvel, it's usually correct.
It meets your low expectations.
Yeah.
What was the last time you had a low expectation for something? I just want to know if I'm on the same page with your expectations.
Unfortunately, because this is very recent, Black Panther 2.
No.
What?
Yeah.
I love that. What was
your low expectation? Yeah.
So my personal opinion, and this isn't me knocking Marvel, anyone who was on the script, the actors.
No, we get it here. Even our least favorite Marvel movie is still a fantastic movie.
Yeah. The passing of Chadwick Boseman really, I think, hurt that franchise.
Yeah.
You know, the first movie did so well to most people. I still wouldn't put Black Panther in my top 10, but Black Panther had a really large impact. And of course, it's an unfortunate passing. There's nothing anyone could do about it. I think when they try to rework the story, since Chadwick is no longer here, it felt like a rush job. There was meaningful things in the story, but just overall, it was like recreating Black Panther 1, just from Shuri's perspective. Not as, this isn't going to be a funny, because, you know, she's kind of a comical person.
Right.
So this is more
silly,
serious,
younger,
which is
simpler.
fine.
Yeah, she had to grow up quick.
Namor, I thought Namor was fine. I didn't have an issue with him. I didn't like the chemistry that they had on film. It just didn't feel right for that to be her villain, because originally that was T'Challa's villain.
He didn't seem like a villain. He seemed like an
Right,
anti-hero.
but you
Yeah,
know,
but
like
then
that's
a
how.
lot-
who
yeah.
That's who
Yeah.
he is, though.
I think Shuri's going to be great as Black Panther, but based off of the end credit scene, she's clearly not going to be Black Panther forever.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I think that decision was to recast T'Challa without actually recasting him for the second movie. And sorry, spoilers for people who haven't seen it yet, unfortunately.
I mean, we're
Disney
talking
Plus
at
Antman.
this
point,
but you know,
yeah.
some people still have waited. But if you go by the comics, and I know I can't bring up the comic books and what happens in
we
different
flooded
times.
Wakanda.
Well, not even that. T'Challa and Storm are actually a thing. So
are you upset that might not happen now?
Yeah, no, it will never happen.
Well, I mean, we could have. Okay, so there are other variants though that don't look like their counterparts. So we could get a T'Challa in another universe that's not Chadwick.
But it's not going to be the same. It's not going to have that. Like, imagine if Black Panther 2 would have introduced the very first actual mutant from the X-Men series, which would have been Storm. Way more impactful. I think that story would have had with the future of the franchise, the future of everything else that they introduce. And I really think Dr. Doom should have been the villain.
I wonder if part of me though with some of that stuff things he wasn't because everybody expected him to be.
Yeah.
It's like, so eventually we're going to get Dr. Doom. Eventually we're going to get Mephisto.
Yeah.
Eventually we're going to get legit mutants and not just a throwaway line. And well, I guess Namor was our first mutant in the MCU, which other than Miss Marvel, but I feel like that's a little bit appropriate because he is the first mutant in the comics, but not the oldest mutant.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, like, again, that's just my personal, like, it's nothing to take away from the movie. It just didn't feel like it hit at home for me personally. I think they could have waited another year to like really hammer down on the story that they wanted to tell. And don't get me wrong, like they did well with explaining the passing of the torch. I think bringing back Killmonger to be the person that Shuri see was the biggest surprise. I didn't expect it. I got spoiled.
No way.
Yeah, it got spoiled for me on the internet, so I was pissed. Her suit, and I don't think a lot of people catch this, she has gold and silver trim. That's a representation of T'Challa and Killmonger.
Yeah, that's true. That is a good point. That is a really good point.
She's taking two people who meant to do the same, but totally different ways of doing it. And they both affected her life in some way, somehow.
And they both had good points.
Yeah. So the symbolism and everything is there for the culture for Black Panther. Like I said, it just didn't feel like that was the movie they wanted to make.
That's fair.
You know,
I just now like remembered us having a conversation after I saw the movie and you hadn't, and you were like, "Oh, I got spoiled. I know Dr. Doom's in it," and I remember being like,
because someone blatantly was like, "Yeah, Dr. Doom was like." And I was like, come on, bro.
That was so hard to be like, no, he's not. But I was like, I didn't want to ruin it. But then you were disappointed he wasn't in it. So now I should have just told you.
Disappointed. So, but you know, it's all good. And I know we didn't really mean to sidetrack with Black Panther.
No, it's all connected.
That was the last.
I absolutely loved Wakanda Forever, but I get what you're saying because Shuri wasn't necessarily my first choice for it. She just seemed too young. But I did like when M'Baku came and he's like, well, you grew up so fast. So I could see how that could be like her rushing that character. Right. And I do look forward to Disney's done good at correcting themselves with doing origin stories and coming back and filling in plot holes or just making fun of themselves for not filling in plot holes.
Right.
So I'm hoping that maybe they will do that and we'll see more of it because we really haven't seen Black Panther mixed with too much of the MCU. We haven't, he was in Infinity War and Endgame and Civil War, but it's always been as like a cameo. It didn't feel like it blended together.
Right. One thing I did want to bring up with Kang and Black Panther, Jonathan Majors is scheduled to be around for a long time. There's rumors that he is going to play the Beyonder, which will be a variant of Kang.
Ooh, yeah.
I like it. What if he had ties to Wakanda as well? What if he was Bashanga, the first Black Panther, the first ruler of Wakanda? Like, I'm not opposed to something like that.
Maybe instead of going like an Egyptian Rama Tut origin, it's like a Wakanda ruler origin.
Yeah, like some people might not like it, but
nobody's gonna like everything.
You know, but I think that's a direction that would fit.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree because yeah, you can rip things straight from the comic book pages, but you can also add your own flair, which the Marvel they do for all, you know. That would really shake things up.
Yeah,
and
like,
add more
think about
meaning.
It. You know, his Kang's original timeline is technologically advanced. What's technologically advanced in the MCU currently?
Wakanda, yeah.
You know,
that's true. That's true.
I mean, I think mutants is gonna throw a wrench into everything too, and it's gonna be a good time. I cannot wait for Wolverine and Deadpool.
Apparently, the rumor on that too is they're messing up the timeline.
Yeah,
like they're pissing everybody off. Like,
I mean, we don't have a Flash for a Flashpoint, so you got to do it somehow, I guess.
Oh, come on.
Oh, you got with Cable. I mean, does Deadpool still have the Cable thing? Is that what he's doing?
Maybe. I don't know.
I heard the TVA is involved. That's
yeah.
Lauren, why don't you go ahead and give us your Antman and the Wasp Quantumania predictions before we get totally sidetracked?
Oh, I got nothing. I'm terrible at predictions. I have no predictions.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, like I said, I think Scott gets stuck in the quantum realm. They're gonna shelve him for a bit. Cassie Lang is going to start the Young Avengers. And we're gonna
that's why I think they recast her, is because they need.
That's 100% why. There's no other reason in my mind that they recast that character but to start the Young Avengers.
It's probably because she was so badass in Supernatural that they cast her in this.
I didn't know she was in Supernatural.
Do you guys think we'll get a Fantastic Four reference or name drop?
We damn well better. It's overdue.
They've been edging us so badly at this point that I hope we get something.
Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if we see Reed himself.
Like, the fact that if they don't, but the very first Richards family member is Kang, Nathaniel, like, that's wild to me. We still don't have a Reed Richards, Sue Storm, and all that. Like,
I think if they don't connect those two, people are going to be upset. Will they connect in this movie? I don't know. I don't see why they
have to at some point. So even when is the time?
Just an end credit scene.
When would they connect him and start introducing the Fantastic Four, if not in this movie? Because they're supposed to start filming next year.
Yeah.
Isn't Fantastic Four supposed to be like a 60s movie though, or something? It's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's supposed to be older, but I don't think it's going to be an origin though.
No, they're not doing origin. I think they're probably going to get trapped in time.
Yeah.
Right. And so why not introduce them in this movie then?
So, well, what about if the end credit scene, like, to your point, you say Scott gets stuck? What if he ends up running into Fantastic Four?
My mind would explode.
And Reed helps him.
My brain would explode.
Or they help each other out.
Because this would mean in my opinion, if Scott gets stuck, Janet and Hank dies, what happens to Kang? He has to get out.
He's getting out. I mean,
he has to get out.
Yeah.
So,
and if Reed's doesn't get out, does Kang even exist?
Well, we're going down a bigger rabbit hole with that one, but
man, that would be crazy.
Think about
what is Janet's secret though? There's a secret, so that's
she probably was stuck in the quantum realm with Kang and probably worked with him, and that's why she's so scared of going back.
Maybe what she didn't tell was that she left Reed Richards behind, and she's Kang's mother, great grandmother.
Maybe.
I mean, who's the
There's my prediction.
She's involved with Kang somehow because she's so terrified of going back to the quantum realm.
Because she slept with Reed Richards.
I mean, hey, you know what? You're stuck in the quantum realm.
That's what she did. I mean, yeah, after a certain amount of time. I mean, you talk about different area codes, different quantum realms.
Well, but see, now if she slept with Reed, that kind of messes things up because Sue's there. So how did that work out?
That's awkward. I don't know.
Ask questions. Just checking on browsers.
I said, I'm not good at
we got off topic here.
That's why I
Yeah,
don't write
so
movies.
those are kind of our predictions. Jamal, I really appreciate you hanging out with us again, man. It's such a pleasure to have you on and kind of chat this up.
For
and
sure.
Bring us your knowledge. One more time, where can people find you?
Instagram at the Hop Circles. One word, lowercase.
Too
Boom.
easy. Too easy. Easiest ever.
I usually find him at Beer Commission Chamber. Commission Beer Chamber. I never
Yep.
say it the right way. It's a fantastic bottle shop.
She tried.
Yes.
She tried. You know
Especially
what?
if you like old school hip hop.
Oh,
Yes,
dude,
the
Yeah.
soundtrack is
that's my
phenomenal.
place. I love
And the
early
bathroom
90s
is
hip hop is what?
Yeah.
but the bathroom is covered in comic books.
One of the bathrooms.
Lauren,
Yes,
how
the
did I
other
come there
one-
and you not took whatever?
We wanted to. We ran out of time.
All right.
Yeah.
Guess I gotta
It's
come back
across the street.
ASAP.
It's very near Hourglass Brewing, the one in
Damn,
Hourglass District.
That's crazy. All right. Well,
I've sent you beer from there.
you probably have. All right. Well, that was kind of a wrap up. Next week, I don't remember off the top of my head what we have next week.
Because we don't have anything planned.
I'm sure we do. To God, all things are possible. So jot that down.
Philippians 4:13. I went to Sunday school.
I was quoting "It's Always Sunny," but hey, you know, join
I was
us.
quoting the Bible.
Follow us, subscribe, like both Jamal and the show. That's how we grow. Share with a friend. Help us grow. You know, that's just, if you love nerd stuff, this is the podcast for you amongst all the other ones. Go catch Antman and the Wasp Quantumania, dropping this week in theaters everywhere. And let us know what your predictions are. We will see you next time. Cheers, friends.